everybody on YouTube. We were asked by a couple different people to talk about the design of our smokehouse. And I'll be honest with you, this is the kind of the materials we had available. So this is what we built it out of. This is not the first smokehouse I've ever built. This is actually the third one. And I'll tell you what we did on the last two before I get into this one. So what we had was, I'll just take a picture of my neighbor's shed. So we had a shed similar to that, just a little bit smaller, and it was made out of wood. And what we decided to do is we actually sectioned off and built a smaller section inside the shed. So we just went ahead and put a nice flat spot on it, and then rounded or put a dividing wall and then a door in the center. And then what we proceeded to do after that was all the boards that were exposed to the outside, we just simply caulked all those. And the reason why we had to make a flat top on it is because we wanted to keep the smoke all at an even level inside the smokehouse. Again, that is another style that you can do out of an existing shed. If you have one, you can just section off, a quarter of it, half of it, just depends on how much meat you're wanting to do. But just to give you an idea of how many sticks you can stick in a small area, every 2.5 inches to 2.5 inches if you're using small sticks, 1.5 pounds. If you're using large sticks, 2.5, which end up being, almost 4 pounds. If you're using a stuffer, you'll need to put those every 4 inches. And all we did was just put nails. You could put a screw or whatever you want, but I just use a nail, roofing nail, so that way it's got a big head so it can't slip, and I just put them at a simple little angle up. I'll show you that here in a minute. But it'll be, like I said, so I want to give you another option before you go ahead and build something completely different. So if you have an existing shed that you're not utilizing real well, you can go ahead and take some plywood, build yourself an interior wall and interior roof, and set it up that way. So now I'll go through our design on this one. So what we did here was we started off with some railroad ties. So we got railroad ties on the bottom to simply give us a space up off the ground. We didn't want to have anything for moisture. So any kind of building you're building, if you can build it up off the ground, I think that's a good thing. In the front here, we've got a rock base. So there's a rock base mixture that's actually underneath the whole thing, and that's what those railroad ties are sitting on. That rock base allows the moisture to drain off from the railroad ties, so we don't have any problems. After that, what we did was we actually had some foam panels. These foam panels are aluminum backed, and overkill, complete overkill for a smokehouse. You could just build it what they call stick and frame. But since I had this, and I was really thinking that long term, I didn't know I was going to have a warmer place to keep this. I wanted to have a nice warm spot that I could run minimal electricity to keep this warm, knowing that I was going to make it in the wintertime. So that's one thing you want to think about when you're building your smokehouse. It's either you build it to withstand the cold, or you smoke your meat later on in the year where you have minimal opportunities to get real cold nights. Okay, so we used a total of, let's see, 7 panels. 7 panels to build this, and we're just over 8 feet tall, and then it's 10 foot long. Now I'll go into the inside here. You can see the door. The door is just a piece of 1/2 inch OSB that's just backed with an aluminum backing, so that way it just offers a little weather protection. I didn't go uptown and buy a handle, just built a handle out of a simple 2x4. And you can see the door itself, I actually strengthened it with 2x6s, so then that way it'll offer some rigidity for this door opening and closing. And since these panels themselves are self-supporting, all I had to do was just line it with some 2x4s just to kind of keep the frame structure. And the most important part was I needed to get myself a header up in the top. That way I would have something to screw my other cross boards to. So that center board there is 32 inches across, and then you've got an extra 1.5 inches, so I'm only 35 inches wide inside the smokehouse. So you can call it 3 foot inside the smokehouse. So I'm 3 foot wide and we are inside 8 foot tall. And the thing that I'll share with you here is, if I can get up there, these nails, you can see probably all those nails have a little bit of an upward angle to them. That's what I was talking about earlier. That way it just makes sure that the string holds nice and tight against the board, and then it doesn't allow anything to slip and move. And that's another important part when you're making your smokehouse. You know, I talked about the spacing earlier. If those sticks touch, they won't get smoke. If one stick gets any mold or anything on it, both sticks will get mold or anything on it if they're touching. So it's really important to make sure that you've got your spacing set up right for when you're actually building the interior part of it. So I'm sharing with you our design. There's many other designs you can build, but I wouldn't go spend a bunch of money on plans or anything like that. I mean, unless it's, you know, just $5, $10 or something like that, just to give you a guide. But you can build anything with whatever materials you have and just utilize that. One thing I will tell you a little bit, as far as kind of from something that's important, we talked about it in a little bit one of the other videos, is this little firebox. So this little firebox, normally I like to build them out of like a 15-gallon metal drum. Didn't have one this time. All I had was this barrel, or 6-gallon, basically metal trash can, or metal drum. Okay. And this is the one thing I just want to talk to you about. So you can look all the way through. I've got the smokehouse door open. That's a 4-inch tube that runs through there. And all I did was, like I talked in one of the earlier videos, it's kind of hard to see now that it's there, but I cut a small circle in the center of this bucket. And by cutting that small circle in the center of the bucket, I went ahead and gave myself the opportunity then to cut it at a diagonal piece, kind of like a pie shape. And then that allowed me to fold it back. And then I just alternated cuts with this 4-inch pipe, and just it simply fit right together, kind of like when your hands go together. And then that gives you the opportunity to just bend one out and one in. Stuck a couple simple screws from the piece of stovepipe into the bucket. And then the final piece was, when that was done, I just went ahead and put a little bit of this aluminum tape that they use on ductwork, and it's only rated for 220 degrees. From there, you know, if you're using a foam piece or just using wood, you just got to go ahead and cut yourself your access hole in. I encourage you to put it as low as you can in the smokehouse. The lower the better. One thing is, you know, your smoke always travels up. Second part is, you don't want to also have your smoke directly hitting the meat, because at first, when you know the temperature is a little higher, you don't want that higher temperature to hit any of your meat or your sausage. You want to keep that low. Then the other opportunity that gives you is by having it nice and low. So you can see how low ours is. You know, it's all the way back there. And I've got all this space in between here. So if we have a bumper crop, as far as we're able to harvest a bunch of deer, or if we've got an extra cow or something like that, and we just determine that we want to make a bunch more sausage, we can very simply put in another row right across here, which will double the capacity of our smokehouse. And then the other thing it does, it allows you to, if there are other casings out there that typically call them a little smoky casing. They're usually 1/2 or 3/4 inch in diameter, and they can come in 10-foot lengths. You can take those in and actually drape them over the top, and they'll go all the way down, and you won't have to worry about them hitting the ground or trying to support them in any way. That's why it's important to have your smokehouse tall. And the final reason why you want it tall is, in my opinion, you want to be able to walk inside of it. You don't want to have the opportunity to have to, you know, try to fit your way into this small hole. If you're going to build something that you know you can stand in. Doesn't matter if it's 4 foot by 3 foot. Build it big enough where you can actually walk inside of it. So that way you can hang your meat. If you need to do anything as far as any other sealing up or caulking or anything like that, so you can get it fixed. And that's the other thing I would encourage anybody to do. Once you get it built and you get your fire box built in the back, light it off. Get some pine needles, get a little straw, something like that. Just do a small flame and just watch it and see where the smoke comes out. You don't want your smoke to be exiting on the side closest to where your fire is. You want it to come all the way across like ours. Ours comes all the way across, and like I said, our weak spot's the door, and it comes out the door. Those of you that want to go ahead and vent yours, that's fine, but I'm not doing any specific cooking in here. I'm just doing smoke. And so if you're going to actually cook in yours and you need a vent so that way you can control temperature, that's fine, but I'm not using it to control temperature. I'm using it simply to provide a flavor enhancement to the meat and to allow it to give us a better quality as far as taste in the end. So hopefully that helps you with your when you're building your smokehouse. I would definitely encourage you to use the materials you have and think of those key things that you need. You need accessibility, you need a good way to store ample amounts of meat, and you want to have the opportunity to go ahead and make it a nice cold smoke which enhances the flavor. Thanks for watching. Hope you have a wonderful day. Appreciate those of you that are out there sharing our stuff on social media. Thanks again. Shalom.